Good morning, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the new year. It's great to have you with us. We hope you enjoyed today's session. We've cram-packed quite a bit into it, so please feel free to use questions as we go through. But let's just take care of some housekeeping and we'll get started here. My name is Derek Bell, your host for today's session, and our CEO and founder, Adrian Jones, is on the line today. And Sean Camillo, who's a new member of our team and one of our account directors. So we appreciate Sean spending some time with us today. So we've got Adrian, as I said, and the guys will be helping in relation to Q&A and chat. So feel free to access the chat as we move through. As you know, the webinars are recorded, so you've got access to those within about a week or so following the live webinar. And there's a mountain of replays that you can access as well. So you should have a little cruise around that and take a closer look. And we'll try and provide you with some links, etc., in various emails related to the user group to help guide you to the easiest place to find some of those replays beyond the blog as well. So the Q&A function is public. So just if you do ask questions using Q&A, just be aware that everybody sees those. The idea being that if you've perhaps got the same question, you can upvote that particular question. However, if you want to ask a private question, well, chat is the best way to do that. All right, so what's our plan for the next 60 minutes? Well, I think we're down to about 56 minutes. So first of all, we have quite a few questions submitted this month, most relating to the topic, others not so much, but that's okay. That's why we provide you with that option. You may have noticed the experience has changed a little bit from your end as well. I think this month we let you ask a question at the point of submitting the form, but then also in the reminder emails, we gave you another chance to ask some questions, because we found that some people were asking questions at the point of registration, but not too many. And so we thought perhaps you would think about those questions after you've registered and before the live webinar. So the reminder emails gave you a chance to do that. So thank you for submitting those questions. We'll get onto those here in a minute. Then we're going to break it down into looking at delivering greater personalization, targeting buyers based on observed behavior. So we'll show you how to do that. And our evidence certainly shows that there is an increase in conversion rates when you go through this process of tailoring that experience. Now, most of you will be live also on release 23A of Eloqua, which is taking place this month. Most of the Australia, New Zealand, and Asia clients who are on pod 7 or pod 1 will already be live. And I think, no, I'm speaking at a school, but the rest will be live. I think this coming weekend is the next run for the finalization for that. So we'll get onto that and show you that. Q&A is at the end, but Q&A is also throughout. So please feel free to ask questions as we move through the webinar as well. All right, let's dive into some of the questions. First one is from Selena in Australia, and she's a digital marketing manager. And she says, with the iOS privacy introduction, does it mean we should not set personalization triggers based on email open and click? Very valid question, and a question that a lot of people had initially. And so the answer, Selena, is no, absolutely not. So when you access through whether it's segments or shared filters or through the campaign canvas and you ask the question, has the person opened an email or have they clicked on an email, etc., the responses you will get are those people who have really clicked, okay? So Eloqua is able to determine those people who are auto opens or auto clicks, for example, and they're separated. So they, for all intents and purposes, the answer will be no. So if you have 500 people coming through a segment into an email, and then the next question, open the email, the question, the response to that will be that yes, they have, if they really have. If they're an auto open though, the answer will be a no. Okay, so just so you're crystal clear on that one. Now that QR code that's on the screen right there, that takes you to a blog post that you might find interesting that we did last year. And essentially that blog post will answer your question as well. But take a moment to scan that and or you'll find it on our blog post or on our blog. All right, next one. So this is from James. So James is managing Eloqua here in Australia and has NetSuite integrated. So an ERP/CRM platform, which gives you a bit more context to his question. So is there a way we can segment based on order quantity, total spend over X timeframe? So the answer is yes. The how you would do that probably requires a little bit more discussion, but fundamentally, yes, you could. My initial gut feel would be that because the source of truth for that information, in fact, sits in the CRM, in this case, in NetSuite, then it's probably better to have that be the source of truth and that be the information that we use. Now, do we bring all of that data across into Eloqua on a live feed? Probably not necessary. What you may want to think about doing is looking at ranking people potentially or organizations, depending on how you want to do it, maybe a gold, silver, bronze type scenario, and you create thresholds for what is a gold versus a silver versus a bronze type of client. And that could be based on quantity and total spend combined. For instance, there could be a range of ways to do it. But the short answer to your question, James, is yes, absolutely. We can do that. That's not a problem. Then from Kath. So Kath is also based in Australia, and she's talking here about excluding certain contacts potentially from specific domains. And so competitors obviously is where she's drawing that requirement from. So yeah, absolutely, you can do that. Probably would have been done a long time ago when Eloqua was first set up for you. We would have gone through that sort of process and asked you who those competitors were. But of course, competitor landscapes change and you may want to add more. So absolutely, you can do that. Another way to do it would be to look at using a shared filter. And so you may be aware within segments and shared filters, there's a filter criteria called email domain. And so what we use that here at Marketing Cube quite extensively. And what we do is we drop that shared filter into all of our segment templates. So regardless of what the segment template does, it includes this particular shared filter. And that shared filter contains, excludes Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, etc., and probably 30 plus different domains that we know, well, they're domains that typically belong to people that we're not overly interested in talking to because we're really a B2B player. So if people sign up with Gmail, in our world, what we do is we actually send them a polite email saying, hey, look, probably not the best way for us to communicate with you. We'd really rather understand who you are, your business, your industry, what your objectives are, and we can better help you from that point of view. So the answer is yes, Kath, you can absolutely do that. That's not a problem. If you wanted to, the second part there of your question is, can we see who is excluded before the attempt to send an email? So that is easier or much more easily achieved by creating a shared filter and using the shared filter as an exclusion versus simply a master exclude. So a master exclude simply prevents people from getting anything, essentially, but you don't see that at the segmentation level. So a shared filter would be a better way to do that. Then from Michelle in New Zealand. So emails are our most successful entry point for our B2B marketing. How will engagement data allow me to devise a campaign that entices my audience to take the next step to actually speak to a human? I think there are a lot of people on the call today, Michelle, who probably have the same question. So a great question. Now, the upside of using a platform like Eloqua, of course, is you actually have visuals on who these people are and the level of engagement and how engaged they are. So that's the first thing. Then if you mix that with a person's profile data and a person's engagement, it's generally a really good indicator of interest or intent to buy. Think of lead scoring. Okay, so lead scoring is essentially doing exactly that and then ranking those people for you. So instead of sending messages to your entire database that are generic and are the same, what we can start to do is look at tailoring those communications based on a person's digital profile and their engagement and combining those two. So lead scoring helps you from a segmentation point of view to do exactly that. The other thing I would suggest is, buyer behavior has certainly changed. And the vast majority of people, I think, will spend a lot more time online and they don't want to talk to people until they inform themselves adequately and are in the right position to then have what they believe is a better discussion with a human, as you say, so to speak to a human. So next month, we'll be talking a little bit further on this topic, but in April, we'll be focusing on lead scoring, and that may well be a key topic for you to explore moving forward. So hopefully that helps. Okay, and this one is from Laura in Italy. So hi, Laura. So Laura asked a question which I think is probably suitable for just about everybody that's using a CRM platform. And in this world, Laura's using Salesforce as her CRM with contacts and leads. Her challenge is what happens when there's duplicate emails, and typically how does Eloqua manage that? Now, of course, we don't have access to Laura's instance, and we can't get in to see exactly what's happening. But my best guess would be that system is configured that Eloqua will look at the most recently modified lead or contact. So if you have 5 leads with the same email address and maybe 1 contact with the same email address, and it is in fact the same person, Eloqua will take the most recently modified information from the CRM and bring that into Eloqua. And that's how you would adjust your messaging. And when you play with segments, etc., it's the most recently modified information that typically that Eloqua would be referring to. Hopefully that helps. Then from Laurie in the US. So Laurie's question is quite specific, and I know Laurie's not on today's session. She'll be on the US session tomorrow night, but she's referring there to Commerce Cloud. So that I'm still trying to get an answer for her, so I won't bother the rest of you with that particular one today. All right, and then there was one final one. As I said, there was a lot of questions today from Kath. So Kath says, Kath had 2 questions this month. What are some of the benefits of using campaign fields, and are they useful for reporting? The answer is an absolute yes to that second question. Can they be used for lead scoring? Everyone who clicked on a campaign tag with X the last month, and we currently don't use them. I'm looking at how to sell this to my users who hate having to do more steps. Okay, so I'll leave that last concern in relation to user happiness up to you to figure out. But yes, the notion of using the campaign fields, and I know in your world you're referring to Salesforce CRM specifically, that yes, absolutely. So the campaign reporting can be really, really helpful. The campaign fields will enrich the campaign reporting that you need within or want within Salesforce. And so probably the question I would want to sit down and have a chat with you and understand what your reporting requirements are that you have to sort of give back to the business. If I can understand that in more detail, then we can work out which of the Salesforce campaign fields are going to be the most effective. So if you're using in Eloqua campaign type, region, and product, there's certainly 3 fundamental fields that you can send back. When it comes to campaign IDs that are generated, that can become really helpful because that enables you as a CRM user to then view people based on their specific engagement within specific campaigns. Then in relation to that lead scoring piece, so everyone who clicked on a campaign tag with X in the last month, probably would need to talk to you in a bit more detail about that one, but I'm starting to feel like that moves more towards UTM tracking and getting quite granular in what you're trying to achieve there. So fundamentally, the answer is yes. It would then come down to your unique business case and what your requirements are as to how to really best take advantage of that. How to use observable behavior mixed with buyer stages to deliver greater personalization. Now, we could do an entire day's workshop on this. So I'm going to really try and nut this out in about 8 minutes. Okay. So in the beginning, digital body language, what is it? And how does that really help us? So observable buyer behavior is the digital body language you have access to from within Eloqua through tools like segments, shared filters, lead scoring, etc. Now, in order for you to really take advantage of that, you first must have clarity around the buyer stages of your prospective clients. And how do you do that? That's a really good question. So at a really high level, and I can't emphasize more, at a very high level, what I'm trying to do here is give you an example of one possible journey, okay? So people from a digital point of view start out looking really just like a suspect. And as far as Eloqua is concerned, at that particular point, it's an IP address, okay? Now, at some point, that person will submit a form, okay? Or perhaps they'll come in through the CRM and and then be added to Eloqua. At some point when you send them an email and they open that email, or at some point when they fill in the form, Eloqua is able to take that IP address and profile information of an unknown contact and now merge it with a known contact, or we might want to use the word prospect, okay? That's how they begin their life essentially within Eloqua. Moving along, they may then begin to be involved in campaigns that you're sending, and you're starting now to try and build profile information about the particular individual. And so at some point, they might become a lead where they now go from Eloqua into the CRM platform. And once they're in the CRM platform, obviously the sales get involved. There's a human hopefully reaching out to them, depending on what it is they're inquiring about or who they are. You may well also want to create some sort of a threshold. Maybe they don't go straight into the CRM. They remain in Eloqua for a little bit longer. So that blue line may push a little bit further along to the right. So next step is from a CRM language point of view would be a contact. So they're converted essentially from a lead. There's now a human involved in the process. There's intent to buy has been identified. They meet certain qualification criteria from the sales team. And so they get converted to a contact. And eventually the goal, of course, is to convert them to becoming a client. So they're more than that. So that's a very linear exercise, and I appreciate not all buyer journeys are linear. They're all over the shop in some cases. Being able to identify and where these people are potentially in their journey is key. Part of the way you do that really is by asking questions. So using our forms in a more intelligent way to ask better questions, not just the same old questions every single time, then that's going to help you build your first party data. All right. So how do we do that as marketers? Well, with Eloqua, we can do it in a whole range of different ways. At that very early point, maybe it really is just advertising. It could literally be a bus. It could be a bus stop. It could be television. It could be newsprint, which is a bit retro, I suppose. And then obviously all of the digital channels, whether it's social or Google search result, whatever it might be. There's a whole range of ways that you can reach these people. So then we start to present these people with opportunities to share more information. And so content, thought leadership, those sorts of things are the best way for you to start to build your first party data. As they progress further in that journey, then you start to tailor your communications a little bit further. Now you start to know a little bit more about them. Perhaps there is a propensity to buy, and they've indicated a time frame potentially as to when they require something. In addition to that, so case studies are often a good way to do that because they start to get a little bit more specific. So whether they be PDFs or videos or whatever they may be, there's a whole range of ways that you can share that information with people. Then, of course, video content. Video is king in many aspects. And I know some of you on the call today, as I look down a list, have some really awesome video content that you're sharing and developing and using at various stages of the buyer journey. And then eventually they become a client where then it becomes cross-sell and upsell. So your behavior from a marketer underneath all of these different stages is really driven by your ability to build smart segments, to build those segments based on a combination of profile and also engagement or lack of engagement. So those two things combined, essentially. So along the way, you may also be offering subscriptions, and they're a great way to have people give you more information. So think about a preference center, okay? Think about very tailored subscriptions potentially for specific things within your industry. As I think about our university clients, for instance, with a whole range of different faculties, depending on who you're talking to, there's that pre-student environment. There's obviously then once the person becomes an enrolled student, et cetera, different types of communication, and then probably becomes quite faculty specific for some students, et cetera. And so tailored experiences can then be delivered to those people. And the same applies in the business world, depending on the type of communications that you're delivering or products or services that you're offering. And you notice there I put events and webinars sort of on the left versus maybe in-person events. So as we start to move closer to the person actually parting with some cash and becoming a client, well, the more expensive cost of sale exercises, in-person events, obviously become something that you may want to look at. But you'll know that based on your ability to segment your audience and understand where they're at. taking all of that information and using it to enhance your personalization is really where your first party data comes into it. And I hope that first party data and a strategy to obtain and to build more of your first party data is a conversation that you're really having internally when you have meetings and plan campaigns, etc. Because the world is going to get a lot harder for those organizations that don't have good first party data. Now, Google keeps moving the goalposts further and further out, but it's still something that we know is coming. Certainly within the Australian marketplace, we know of legislative changes that are coming that we need to be aware of. And if you've got a good database filled with good first party data, then you're going to be in a much better position, and it will be a competitive advantage. So that enables you to look at specific website visits. You want to use those website visits and Eloqua landing page visits to capture first-party data. But don't just ask first name, last name, email, etc. Think about other types of questions that are going to help you build a better profile of people. Use those different engagements and smart things like progressive profiling on your Eloqua forms, so that when someone reaches a form, you're not just simply asking questions you already know the answers to. If you already know the answers, let's present other questions that will help you build out those profiles. Now, I've got to tell you, it's not going to happen overnight, and it's a long-term strategy to build that first-party data. I think I've shared with you numerous times. For us, it was around geography was a big one. We started to get a lot of interest from people overseas. You saw we had people from the US and Italy registering for the user group, and we were asking them which state of Australia you were in, and obviously that made us look like idiots. So we changed that strategy, and I'm glad to say we did that like 8 or 9 years ago, and we just asked country. Country is really it. For folks in Canada, Australia, and the US, we also ask for state or province just to give us a bit more information, but otherwise it's country. And so I can tell you in confidence, and I think I looked at this earlier this year as a bit of an update, there's probably less than 200 to 300 contacts in our database that we don't know which country on the planet they are. And that really helps us for a lot of things, especially user group comms and timely messaging, etc. So find what that piece of data is, and there may be multiple pieces of data that you need, and get a strategy in place to capture that and start to build that. And if you've got good CRM data as well, and I hear some of you chuckling through the Zoom line, if you've got good CRM data and can get your CRM users up to speed on the importance of some of that, they can also help to enrich that data as well. All right, so how to? That's all the great to know, and yep, that's wonderful, but how? So how do we target buyers based on observed behavior using that digital body language? Yep, good question. So it's really in segments. Segments is the heart of the whole exercise. It's your audience builder. It's where you do all of that magic to make it happen. And it's where you can combine both profile as well as the digital body language. So did they open emails? Did they not? Did they fill in forms? Did they not? So positives and negatives in all of that sort of stuff. Also being able to combine it with external activities as well. Now, let me just have a quick look. There was a question here, Amit. So Amit says, form processing, conditional submission, email address field doesn't end with, then redirect them to separate thank you page. Isn't so simple, or I hear what you're saying. In that scenario, that you've provided there, if I understand correctly, the form will still create a contact regardless. So what some people are wanting to do is actually not even allow the specific email domain to even come into the platform. I think that's the slight difference to what Malcolm's got there. Maybe Malcolm, you can jump in and respond to Amit there, I think. All right. So how do we do it? So there are a range of tools to help you do this. And the campaign canvas is that background. It's the place where all of the magic comes together. And on the campaign canvas, we can use segments, we can use shared filters, and we can use lead scoring. There are a whole range of different ways to do it. Now, there are other elements on the left-hand side of your canvas that you can access to even do more, but often it's these ones that you will use to really route people in different directions and deliver slightly different experiences. So segments, your audience builder. So segments are created using, and you've got basically 5 different options here. So you can use filters to apply using profile data or engagement data. So for example, Eloqua, give me all contacts in New South Wales who have opened an email at least twice in the last 3 months. So that's combining profile and engagement data. Next one, you can add individual contacts. And this one could be quite helpful because sometimes regardless of your filters and what you're applying, et cetera, you know for a fact that Jenny in Canberra and Fred in Melbourne, they need to be in this because the sales team have specifically asked for that to be the case. So in your database of hundreds of thousands or millions of contacts, you can add those individual contacts if you need to. So it's just quite helpful to know. Now, you can also upload a list using Excel. Typically not the best way to do things because that would typically tell me that it's a static list based purely on profile information. And in the world of data security, that also tells me you're exporting probably personally identifiable information from a source system. Maybe it's a CRM or some other platform. You've then got Excel files floating around the company, maybe on hard drives or thumb drives, etc. So not advisable, but sometimes it has to happen. So you've got the ability to do that as well. Then you can also use a shared filter within your segment. So a shared filter can be used on your canvas, but a shared filter can also be used in your segment. Think of a shared filter in a segment as almost like a bit of a shortcut. So if you're going into a segment and you're regularly adding this filter, that filter, this filter, and that filter, and you're doing it again and again and again, sometimes it's easier to just go and create the shared filter with all those same filter criteria, and then you can drag in just that simple one piece into your segment to repeat that process. That's what we do with those 30 plus email domains. I don't type those out every single time. I simply have them as a shared filter, and we've added them to all of our templates. Then you can also add a shared list. Now, I know some of you on the call use shared lists reasonably extensively for a whole range of different things. And shared lists can also be dropped in to a segment as well. So you've got a range of options to play with there. Now, next step is to actually look at your data. And this is, I mean, for those of you who attend the user group regularly, you probably hear me say this a million times. But blindly emailing lists is not taking advantage of the insight that you've got. Okay, so if you're just uploading a list and you're emailing people and moving on to the next thing, you're kind of missing an opportunity there. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to start life with a segment template as a baseline and then be able to add to that. Generally, I find the best part about a segment template is if you're running on a subscription basis using email groups, you're done and dusted. It's there, it's built in, but it's also the exclusions. So quite often there are set exclusions that you want to use and trying to remember those every single time or blindly going to a past segment and saving as, etc. That sort of stuff can be a little bit problematic. So templates is a much smarter way to do things. The other way I use segments is sometimes from a reporting point of view. That may sound a bit strange. Obviously, you've got dashboards and insight to help you from a reporting point of view. But segments sometimes can be really helpful to just get in there and apply filters. As you start to think about your campaign and the audience that you want to target, simply going into Eloqua and then starting to apply different filters can be really helpful to help you gauge and get an idea of the potential audience size for the campaign that you're potentially strategizing. That's what I mean when I say use segments potentially for a little bit of reporting. And I have those tucked away in a folder. Segment reporting, it's very original. And as that becomes quite helpful as well. Okay, so let's build an audience potentially for a re-engagement campaign. And so what I want to do here is actually just jump in and show you one. Here's one I prepared earlier. So the way I did this is I essentially went to my segment area. I went to create a contact, and I have a segment that I use a lot, and I just call it base segment, start here. It's very original. And so what that does, essentially, just as I mentioned to you there a moment ago, it's really all about the exclusions. And you'll notice here on the left-hand side, it's all exclude, 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 exclude. There's the shared filter that I mentioned to you. So these are all the domains. You can see we did this originally, and then it just kind of grew and grew and grew and grew as it went on. So, so just as we discovered more of them. And so then what I've done is, now let me go back now to the one I created to get this started for you. So my sample. So what I did is I added a new filter criteria at the top, and I started to play around and do different things. So what I might do is actually delete that and show you the build process. So the first thing I did was play with the plus icon. These are the 5 options that I just showed you that you've got to use. So I start with filter criteria, and I can put in here whatever I want, maybe a little bit of a description. And if it makes life a bit easy, you can just drag that up to the top. So you've got your intended audience at the top of the screen. So the first thing I wanted to do was look at people who were perhaps not engaged. And type in engage, email. So I want to look at those people who have not opened any emails. And you can see Eloqua defaults, but I don't want that default. I want to look at within the last, let's say, 12 months. So you can see you've got hours, days, weeks, etc. to play with. Now, the golden rule with building segments is every time you add a filter, hit save. The reason for that is you'll start to then get an idea of audience size. If I just merrily go in and add 5 or 6 different filters and hit save, I'll have no idea how I actually got to this number. So next one. All right, so that's everybody. Now, I do have some exclusions in there. And these you can see I wrote competitors, vendors, and any agencies. So they're excluded by default. I might remove that particular one because in this case, I'd be happy to target them. So again, I've removed a filter. So let's adjust that and hit save and see what happens. All right, so it's jumped up considerably. Okay, all right, cool. So now I want to look at people potentially within a particular geography. Now for me and for Marketing Cube, and this is a byproduct of, I mentioned to you about us capturing country. So because we have country and I know that data is in good shape, I can come in here and be very specific. And what we do is we have Eloqua in the background, does some data washing for me. So if someone says they're in Australia, Eloqua will automatically populate the region field to say Asia Pacific. If they tell me they're in Italy, it tells me region is EU. If it tells me they're in the United Kingdom, it's Europe. Okay, so we just tell Eloqua what to do, and it just does it constantly for me. So I never have to play around with that. Okay, so I'm going to hit save again. So we've got 5962. Now it being a little more geographically specific, we're down to 4817. Probably what I would do in all reality, though, is also add another region, which would be Asia. So what I can do there now, and this is, you got to watch the logic here. If I hit save, I think that will possibly go to 0. Yeah, 0. Now, why has it gone to 0? It's gone to 0 because no contact in our database exists both in AsiaPac and Asia. So I need to click on the AND operator and then click on those, hold my shift key down, and you'll notice the group icon button becomes available at the bottom of the screen. So this is now a Boolean search, right? So we're looking for people in AsiaPac or Asia who have not opened an email in the last 12 months. So now we hit save again, and then, okay. All right, so there are other things that I can do, and there's a whole range of filters over here. So keep in mind, my objective is re-engagement, and depends then who I'm wanting to re-engage. Is it customers? Is it prospects? If it's prospects, what I would probably do is jump in here, and I would, in Marketing Cube world, I would change this. I would add customers in here, change that to customer. And this one is an account. Okay, so yep, that's all. So to my excluded, okay, save. So now I'm really drilling in down to prospects and potentially some others. So if I click on view contacts, I can now start to actually look at who these people are, essentially. And another way to look at it, depending on what my campaign objectives are in relation to that engagement, is maybe start to look at it from an industry point of view. I know I've got one here called industry. There it is. And so what that's doing is just changing the view and enables me to then look at industry. So I've got some that are blank. Okay. So what I can do is, well, actually, I've got 3 fields there. They're different ones. So I will probably use the contact field. So what I could then do, so to make sure I'm specific and I know their industry, I can say industry at a contact level is not blank. So now what I'm going to end up with is essentially a large group of contacts who have not opened an email within the last 12 months, who I know which industry they're in, and they're within Asia or AsiaPac. So that gives me a very targeted group of people. Now, of course, I can target it further. And in our world, what we'd probably want to do is look at people who maybe we know are using Eloqua, people who are not using Eloqua, maybe using other competitor platforms, etc. And so I then begin to tailor that. Or I may look at leaving it around that size and then using my dynamic content within my emails to explore that a little bit further and in a bit more detail. Any questions on that point? Just wanted to give you an example and show you how you can sort of play with that sort of content and segments. All right, so time for change. And hopefully what we've been able to do is provide you with some inspiration for a little bit of change and how that change can help. Why building adaptive and personalized always-on campaigns will increase your buyer conversion rates. Now, the secret here is the personalization of those always-on campaigns. And it was interesting yesterday sitting with a client, just talking about some autoresponder emails. And so her concern was that there potentially was some older autoresponder emails coming out of the back end of forms typically that probably needed to be reviewed and refreshed. And look, it's a dynamic scenario, right? Things are changing, campaigns are changing, and certainly it's a great idea to do a little bit of an audit, and maybe the start of the new year is a good time to do that. Just to revisit and make sure that any of those autoresponder type campaigns, and certainly the always on campaigns, are still relevant, are on brand, on message, etc. The links are still relevant. The links still work is also something you always want to make sure of. So a little bit of an audit sometimes of those campaigns is a really good way to do things. Now, we've seen and we're in the process of refreshing our website. Hopefully you've noticed a little bit of brand refreshing today in relation to our presentation. And we're looking to beef up case studies and examples to show you a little bit more about the success that some of our clients are having and broader across the Oracle sphere as well. But we know for a fact that if you can spend more time tailoring your messages to people, certainly from an always-on campaign or nurture campaigns, the more you can tailor them, the better the response will be. And I think this goes back to Michelle's question, I think it was at the beginning of today, how taking advantage of dynamic content and digital body language, how is that going to help me to have a conversation with a real person? And it's presenting people with information that is relevant at the end of the day. I always use the Netflix example. I'm just blown away by how Netflix tailor their messaging to me. I get these emails and it's like, Derek, we think you might like this. And 9 times out of 10, I look at that email and I'm like, you know what, Netflix, you are on the mark. I absolutely would love to watch that. And so off it goes. I add it to my list and eventually I get to it. But it's about knowing the person as much as possible. And the more first-party data you can get, the richer you can make those experiences as you move through. But keeping in mind, you've got the ability to focus both on their engagement, also their lack of engagement. And that's what we just looked at there, that re-engagement campaign. So those filters are all pre-built. You just need to drop them in and then start playing with them. The suggestion I would give for you to help implement these things that we're kind of talking about is think about your next event, all right? So the next event will probably contain a registration form of some form. It could be an in-person, it might be an open day, roadshow, it could be a webinar, whatever it might be. Think about some additional questions that you could ask people. People sometimes I use the user group as an example. I'm almost at a point where I'm not sure what to ask anymore beyond asking you what your favorite color is, because we get so many of you obviously attending on a very regular basis. And so that's a bit of an objective for this year, is to look at how we can enhance some of those questions. So over the next 12 months, as you register for the user group, see if you can hold me to account if I'm not asking different questions. Point there, don't just ask the same questions every time. Use progressive profiling to deliver new questions that you don't already know the answer to. And first-party data is obviously a primary goal in what we're trying to do, but also think about questions that give you a little bit more of an idea about intent than just simply a yes/no type of response. Think through the profile data you need and have that discussion with sales. And I use that term generally. So whether you're professional services and your partners or you're in hardcore IT sales and you've got a account directors, etc., whatever the case may be, anyone who's responsible for selling within your organization, what do they need to have better qualified leads? And then use that dynamic content. Certainly from an event registration point of view, you've got great ability to play with some dynamic content as people select different sessions, maybe different topics, etc. You've got the ability to very much tailor your post-event comms, even the registration comms that go out can all be tailored to those respective individuals. And the other one that is really popular, obviously, is newsletters. Newsletters are a bit of a mainstay for all of us as marketers, and newsletters don't have to be static. They really can be quite dynamic. We've just recently pushed out the important update subscription, and the important update subscription is definitely dynamic, and we've been really pushing hard to get those subscribers to let us know their pod number, because often with the updates that come from Eloqua, they can be pod dependent in relation to timelines generally. So if we know the person's pod number, then we can just give them an update that's relevant to them. And so that's just one way we can go through that process. Also, if we know which CRM they're using, for example. So that's another way. If we know they're using Salesforce, or we know they're using Oracle Sales Cloud, or they're using NetSuite, etc. If there are specifics, then we can present them with information that is specific to them, and at the same time, not deliver content that is irrelevant to other people. So dynamic content, first-party data, profile data, all that sort of stuff combined really helps you adjust your newsletters and hopefully deliver content with a bit more punch, because people are seeing things that are actually relevant to them. Alrighty, what's new? So as I said, 23A, the release of Eloqua is out for most of us, and the remainder will take place this weekend. But as I said, Pod 7 and Pod 1 have all taken place this, what was it, last weekend? And I think it's this coming weekend that you've got the final releases. So what's in there? There's a range of things in there. That QR code, by the way, that's a subscription. So if you scan that QR code, if you're not already subscribed to the important update subscription, please go ahead and scan that and just fill in a little form, and we'll ask you your pod number. So if you're not sure how to do that, it's just simply in the browser at the very top of the screen. We tell you how to do it on the form, so you should hopefully figure that out. All right, so what do we got? We've got the ability now in Insight to do a little bit more branding using some HTML and markup to add design features. So now we can look at adding company logos and other bits and pieces of information that you feel would enhance the visual appeal of your reports as you're potentially sharing those with the rest of the business. Again, if you've got any questions on any of these points, please shoot an email to support@marketingcube.com.au or reach out to myself and I can connect you with the support team on that one. There is also a new Insight report, which is looking at email frequency by email group. Now, there has been email frequency reports available, but being able to dig a little bit deeper now into frequency by email group is a big plus. So as you think about subscriptions and other ways you're using email groups, then that will enhance that reporting for you and just, give you a more granular view of what's going on in relation to your email campaigns. Automated certificate management. This has to do with landing pages and deliverability overall. And so Eloqua is moving to a process where they will actually manage this for you. So you're not having to worry about working with third-party vendors to get your certificates, etc. For this is the whole HTTPS type scenario in your URLs, etc. And so that is pod dependent at the moment, and pod 1 will be amongst the last people to do it. But I think pod 7, which is the majority of the Australian and New Zealand and Asia clients, most of you guys are actually in a position to take advantage of that today. And I believe our support team have probably been in contact with you to talk through that and how to take best advantage of it. Okay, that's the same QR code, by the way. So if you missed it, you can still scan it there. For those who may be utilizing the Oracle Eloqua SMS solution as against the Marketing Cube SMS solution, there's more enhancements coming there in relation to folder management and also being able to access more of that SMS behavior using segment filters as well. So more enhancements available there for you to play with. The Eloqua Form Application API, this is quite technical, but I think very few of you would ever see this. If you're in a scenario where maybe you're sitting next to a colleague and you're both like looking at exactly the same form and you're both in at the same time, if one of you tries to save while the other has it open and is making other changes, you will get a message prompting you that, hang on a minute, you can't do that. Or if you do, you're going to lose information that's being utilized by the other person or being changed by the other person. So if you ever see the message, that's what it means. There's a screenshot of it in the important update subscription. So even if you subscribe today, you'll still get that important update, by the way. So you'll see a screenshot there. Very rare that you'll probably ever see it, but it's a good thing that it's giving you a message. Now, OCI is oh gosh, I hate acronyms and I should have written it out. It's the data center, essentially. I moved to OCI. So OCI it's Oracle something. And I've completely forgot. I don't know if anyone on the line that can fill me in on that one. But anyway, it's data centers, essentially. And so what Eloqua is doing, or Oracle is doing, is moving Eloqua clients from legacy servers into new, faster, modern, bigger, brighter data centers. And so those moves are happening. So pod 3 and 4, will be complete by this release. Again, it's not something that you're really going to notice a great deal. There will be more for us to take advantage of those changes as we move through further releases. And then finally, Oracle Cloud Accounts. Now, we'll have some more information on this one. Again, there is more detail in the important update subscription, but essentially what Eloqua is requiring admins to do. So if you're an administrator of the Eloqua platform, you'll need to go through this process, okay? And this has to be done before 23B, which is in May. So you've certainly got plenty of time. What essentially you need to do is to create an Oracle Cloud account and link it. So for those customers who have multiple Oracle products, not just Eloqua, maybe you have NetSuite, or maybe you have Oracle Sales Cloud, or maybe you have other ERP solutions or other cloud products. What this is doing is adding Eloqua to that mix. So then at a corporate or enterprise level, you're able to see the entire infrastructure that your business has access to. And this is really just for the admins to understand. So please, if you're not subscribed to the important update, have a look at that. You will find other information in Topliners as well. We've got links in the important update that will take you there to the specific article to have a look at. And if you're a Salesforce CRM user, loads of enhancements there really were, and there's just too many to go through. So what we'll probably end up doing is doing a separate update to those of you who we know use Salesforce. Thank you, Malcolm. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Of course, why didn't I know that? Next time I'll actually write it out, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Okay, OCI. All right. So I think I really didn't think we'd get through today on time, but we did. We have 5 minutes to spare, which means we can definitely do Q&A. But thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next month, where we will explore this topic in a little bit more detail. And then in April, we're going to summarize these 2 months, February and March, and April with lead scoring and how it all comes together from a lead scoring point of view, where you look at all of that profile at data and all of that engagement data that you've been building and capturing that's sitting there and waiting for you to take advantage of it. I'll stay on the line here for a few minutes. If you do have any questions, please drop those in. Thanks, everybody.